Senator John Edwards.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Good to see you. Hello to everyone. Thank you all. Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you to the judge for that wonderful introduction, and I'm very proud to be here. Very proud to be in this wonderful and historic place. 3 days ago, I started a journey. It was a journey for me and a journey for those who've been traveling with me. This is the Road to One America tour, which you've now heard about. And we began in New Orleans. In fact, Elizabeth and I walked through the lower Ninth Ward of New Orleans on Sunday night. And on Monday, we left New Orleans, went to Canton, Mississippi, traveled through the Mississippi Delta, Marks, Mississippi, which is where the Poor People's March began under the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. We went from there to Arkansas, to Memphis, up to Ohio, and over to Pennsylvania, and now we're very proud to be here. And this is about, and one of the reasons that I'm doing this tour, and one of the reasons I'm here, is so that we make certain that the rest of the country hears the forgotten voices of Americans, good people, strong people, courageous people who are just faced with some challenges, and understand the opportunities that all of us have to do such wonderful, good things for them. I'm proud to be here in this great town, this great historic city. I do have to say to all of you, I want to invite George Bush to come here. Because I want President Bush to see the other America and the struggles that people are faced with, good people, strong people, courageous people, people who are proud. And I want him to understand what's happening out here in America. You know, we have 37 million people that the federal government says live in poverty. We got tens of millions beyond that of people who don't technically meet the definition of poverty, but who struggle every single day just to pay their bills. You know, they're one layoff or a job injury or a sickness from a child from going deep in the ditch. So they're vulnerable, they're insecure, they're worried every day. And the one thing we want to make certain that America understands is that poverty is not a New Orleans problem or a Cleveland problem or a Pittsburgh problem. It's an American problem. And America has the responsibility to do something about this. I have a really simple view about this. In a country of our wealth and our prosperity, it is absolutely wrong, morally wrong, to have 37 million of our own people who wake up every single day living in poverty. And when we say one nation, indivisible, I believe that with my heart and soul. I think for everybody who lives in poverty or in the shadows of poverty or in a fear of being in poverty, I want them to hear my voice and I want them to hear your voice. And what I want them to know is we see you, we hear you, we are with you, and we will not forget you. Now, I understand very well communities like this, although I have to tell you, this is a big city compared to the place I grew up. But I grew up in the Carolinas and in Georgia. My dad, as you probably know already, worked in textile mills, but he had to borrow $50 to get me out of the hospital when I was born. And I actually thought, odds were, that I'd end up working in the mills myself. In fact, when I was in school in college, I studied for that kind of career. Didn't end up doing that. I was lucky and blessed to be able to go to law school. But during the time that I was a lawyer, which is about 2 decades, I represented folks just like you and like the people that I grew up with in mill towns in the South. And I was lucky. You know, I lived the American dream because my father, who never got a chance to go to college, worked hard and gave me that chance. You know, I've been able to do everything that you could ever do in this country. And I ran for the Senate. Now I'm running for President of the United States for a very simple reason. I run for president for a very simple reason, which is I want everyone in America, no matter where you live, no matter who your family is, no matter what family you're born into, and no matter what the color of your skin, to have exactly the same chances I've had in the United States of America. That's why I run for president. And you know, I grew up, I've been blessed, I'm lucky. I grew up in the bright light of America, but in too many corners of America today, that light doesn't get there, that there are too many places of darkness. And the truth is, it's important for us, all of us, for good people with good conscience and good souls, to want to spread that light and make it available to everybody so that all America knows what needs to be done in every corner of America, not just in a few places. And this fight to revive and make available the American dream, it continues. It continues every single day. You know, I'm out there fighting for it. We need you to help in this fight and this struggle because there are too many people who live in the other America. You know, I've been asked by some of the media who followed me on this tour. They say, so the two Americas you talk about, is it the rich and the poor? No, it's not. The two Americas are the very rich and everybody else. That's the two Americas. You know, and I've talked to a lot of good people in the last few days all over this country. For example, when I was in Canton, Mississippi, I spent time with poultry workers, people who work in poultry plants, who working under very difficult conditions, subject to injury every single minute. This will sound familiar to all of you. Subject to injury and danger every single minute. And in some cases, they don't even get paid for the hours that they actually work. When I went to Marks, Mississippi, right after we were in Canton, I met a man who spoke very powerfully about his struggles as a low-wage hospital worker, who works in a hospital to help people who need health care, but he has no health care himself. I was in Cleveland. I met with a woman who's working hard, been living in the same house for decades, and who's now at risk of losing her home because a predatory lender is about to take her home away from her. Here in Prestonsburg, of course, where Robert Kennedy made his last stop on his famous tour of Eastern Kentucky. It was just a few months before Senator Kennedy lost his life, and unfortunately that campaign for justice and fairness, which is what his campaign for the presidency was about, ended when he died. And you know, some people have been asked, you know, are you here? Are you in this place because you believe that you should be compared to Bobby Kennedy? The answer to that is no. I do not deserve to be compared to Bobby Kennedy. He is a political hero of mine. But the reason I'm here is because I want America to remember what he did decades ago. And I want America to join us, all of us, to end the great work that Bobby Kennedy started. Because that's our responsibility. And when he was here, he spoke so beautifully in this courthouse about the character of this town and this state, the extraordinary sense of community, the optimism that he saw. I've seen the same thing myself this morning. He did see some hard times when he was here. He saw children who only got milk once a month in one-room school where the teacher was responsible for cooking a hot meal for students every day. But a lot has changed here, as you well know, since 1968. But there are new solutions that are needed. You know, this morning, I want to tell you a quick story. This morning, I met a fellow named James Lowe, 51 years old, coal miner. And he's 3 years younger than me. And he told me that he was born with a cleft palate. And for 50 years of his life, he was not able to talk. People could not understand what he said. And finally, someone volunteered to do the procedure that he needed to correct his condition for free. So he didn't have the money to pay for it. So he was able to get the procedure done, and he was there this morning telling all of us how grateful he was. How grateful he was to be able now to speak, to talk, something he'd spent almost all of his life not being able to do. You know, I have to tell you, when he spoke this morning, instead of being angry about what his life had been like, he was proud. He was strong. He showed the kind of character that I think represents what America is. And he reminded me so much of the men and women who worked in the mills with my dad, who I actually worked with when I was young myself, because they don't complain. You know what I'm talking about. They don't complain. Instead, they go out every day, they work hard, they do what they're supposed to do. No one pays attention to them. But those people like my father and the people who worked in the mill with him, people like James Lowe, they're the people that built America. Not these people on Wall Street. These people who work hard, they're the people who built America and made it what it is today. And all I could think when I was listening to him today is, we're better than this. The United States of America is better than this. In the richest nation on the planet, to have a man live 50 years of his life with a condition that doesn't allow him to speak to his brothers and sisters, and I believe there were 10 of them, to his brothers and sisters, to his own children, to his grandchildren, in the richest nation on the planet, when that condition could have been cured, could have been corrected, for him to live 50 years of his life that way, I reject it. We can stop this. It should never happen again in America. We can do something about this if we've got the backbone and courage to do it. You know, a lot of people say to me, and they've heard it over the last few days, they said, well, I don't understand what you're doing. You know, why are you out there talking about this? Why are you talking about economic unfairness, economic injustice? Why are you talking about poverty? America fought a war on poverty, and it didn't work. Well, that's not the truth. There's a lot of good that came out of the work of LBJ and Robert Kennedy. You know, today, because of their work, we have Medicaid, we have Medicare, we have Head Start, all important laws that help change this country, and a lot of Americans have benefited from them. But we recognize some mistakes were made. We do. We want ideas today that work. We don't want to make people dependent. We want them to be independent. And I have to tell you, I haven't seen anybody yet over the last few days who's looking for somebody to take care of them. What they're looking for is a chance to take care of themselves. That's what we're trying to do. And you know what we see with all this going on? And we have the greatest economic inequality we've had in America since the Great Depression. Literally. We now made up of a few rich people who are doing extremely well and everybody else. And Washington's response? Washington's response has been, greed is good. Take care of the lobbyists. Take care of the special interests. You know, another two Americas that exist in this country is one America in Washington for the lobbyists, for the special interests, for the powerful, for the big multinational corporations, and then one for everybody else. Well, I'm here today to declare that their America is over. We're going to put an end to this. You know, the impact of what's happened, the worst of that impact, though, has been for the lowest income Americans, the lowest paid workers in America. This is an amazing thing. Over the last 30 years, the real wages of low-income workers have gone down 10 cents an hour. Down, not up. 30 years, 10 cents less an hour. That's not honoring work. That's not honoring hard work and responsibility and family, the things that made this country what it is today. The number of full-time workers living in poverty has doubled in America. When these folks ask me, how has the face of poverty changed? I'll tell you one way it's changed. There are millions of people working full-time and still living in poverty in America. Can we not declare once and for all that in our United States, in our America that we all love so much, never again will anybody work full-time and still live in poverty? We reject it. We can do something about this. And too many Americans today are segregated into neighborhoods of concentrated poverty, many more than existed in 1968 when Senator Kennedy came here. What we've done is we've clustered poor people together. How hard is it to figure out that clustering poor people together is a bad idea? What we want to do instead is break down not only the racial barriers, but the economic barriers that still exist in this country. If we actually believe in equality, and we believe in fairness, and I believe it to my soul, that isn't it about time we actually started living together? Isn't it about time that we said we don't cluster poor people together, we will not separate them from the rest of America? In fact, we do believe that every man, woman, and child in America has equal value and equal worth. And then finally, we've stood by while many American families have suffered. And the values that make this country great. And I'm talking about the values of community and family and responsibility. We have teenagers, I've seen them. I hate to tell you, heartbreaking. We have teenagers, 14-year-old girls, who are having their third child. We have fathers who see no hope whatsoever in their lives. No chance, no hope. And as a result, they don't take responsibility for the children that they father. Children are suffering. A global study of child well-being in rich countries around the world found that the United States ranked 20th. 20th. When are we going to start taking care of our children? When are we going to start meeting our responsibility to our children? So these are the things those are the problems. These are the things we're going to do to make it better. These are the things we're going to do to have one America. In one America, we're going to have universal health care for every single man, woman, and child in this country. In one America, we're going to strengthen the right of unions to organize workers in the workplace so that they can earn a decent wage. In one America, we're going to raise the national minimum wage so that people who are working for the minimum wage can actually support their families. And in one America, we're going to make sure that every single child who wants to go to college and is willing to work to go will get the chance to go and will not graduate with some huge crushing burden of debt. You know, it may be true that Washington, D.C. is not focused on the two Americas. It may be true that Washington, D.C. is not focused on the issue of poverty. But what America needs is they need a movement. This country needs a movement. We need a movement to restore our values. We need a movement that actually embraces work again, not just wealth, that believes that everywhere in America, including right here in this community, everyone should have a chance to do better, not just a few people at the top, not just a few multinational corporations, but that everybody ought to get that chance. Everybody should get that opportunity. But the reason I'm here, besides the historic importance of your city, the reason I'm here is this movement will not begin in the Oval Office. The great American movements did not begin in the Oval Office. The Civil Rights Movement, it began in communities just like this, where people spoke up and stood up with courage to right a wrong. Exactly the same thing happened in bringing an end to a long and bloody war in Vietnam. Senator Kennedy spoke about that war, in fact, when he was traveling through Kentucky. The same thing happened in ending a brutal apartheid regime in South Africa. I feel the same movement happening today on the war in Iraq. All across America, Americans speaking out with courage and passion. We need a movement. We need a movement to provide hope and opportunity to everybody. We need a movement to build one America where everyone has a real chance and a real opportunity. And the last thing I want to say to all of you in this heat is God bless you for coming out here. Thank you for being here. But the last thing I want to say to you is your country needs you. It needs you so badly. You know, all of you know this already, but Elizabeth and I had a choice to make a few months ago ourselves, and we made our choice. You know, our lives will be devoted to trying to build the one America that we believe in. So the question for you, for every single one of you, is what are you willing to do? How much do you love this country? How much effort are you willing to give? How much courage do you have? How much are you willing to stand up and speak out? We need you to take responsibility. We need you to take action. We need you to participate in this movement, to build an America that all of us believe in, that all of us can be proud of. As Gandhi said, if I can paraphrase Gandhi, you got to be the change you believe in. You can't wait for somebody else to do this. If we want to live in a moral, just, and fair America where everybody gets a chance, and we want to see America once again leading in a moral and just world, we're going to have to do this together. And brothers and sisters, we are going to do it together. God bless you all. Thank you so much for being here. It's my privilege to be here with you. Thank you. Which way am I going?
Hey, I met Bobby Kennedy.
You did.